about finding a meteorite. So I don't want to just dive right into like, hey man, give me all the awesome details and how exciting it was. I want to start with the fact that what we do is kind of the definition of insanity. Like we literally do the same thing for year
Absolutely.
after year after year and hope for a different result.
It is the true definition of insanity. Nailed it
It
on the
is
head.
actually that, yes. So, um, what how I mean, we know that a lot of people have watched things like Meteorite Men, and there's a new thing out there. I think it's like Desert Hunter or something like that. Hi Betty, welcome. And the difference in those guys and what we're doing is that those guys are hunting in what's known as a known strewn field, right? And
Yeah.
what we're doing is, what term do you prefer? Dry find, cold find? Do you have a
Yeah,
preference?
I go with cold find at this
Cold
point,
find.
yeah. Cold hunting.
Yeah. So tell us, what is cold hunting?
Mhm.
I mean,
Cold
I know
hunt
you're going to reiterate exactly what I just said, but
yeah, no
in
worries.
your
So
opinion,
yeah, cold hunting, in my opinion, if you're looking for meteorites in an area that's not a known strewn field or there wasn't a witness fall, you're just going to a totally random place and in search of meteorites. That's
perfect. I love that. That was so well said. And hi, Ma and Lava Bison. Welcome, everybody.
Hi,
Glad you could join
Betty.
us.
Hi, everyone.
So, yeah, and you did that where and for how long?
Oh my goodness. So it all started when I moved to Cape Cod back in 2008, and I decided to just go on this journey in life where I wanted to find a meteorite because of how I was introduced to it as a kid, like reading books and seeing it around. Um, so I moved to Cape Cod, and basically all of my free time I dedicated to hunting around the landscape for meteorites. And
How many meteorites have been found in Cape Cod?
so for Massachusetts in total, there's only two meteorites that are classified from Massachusetts.
And why is that?
So what I found out is I came to the realization after years and years of searching that it's not a good territory to actually hunt for meteorites. If you're in a forested area with tons of ground cover and you have annual falls where there's leaves coming down and there's like dense brush forest, it's not an ideal landscape to hunt for meteorites. And
Mhm.
essentially, after 10 long years of looking, is when I actually found the meteorite.
Mhm. Mhm.
When I found Barnstable, it took 10 long years of
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, it's just like against all odds kind of
true.
thing when you're looking in a heavily wooded area. I I'm doing the same thing. I've literally looked for 10 plus years, like, and I've always thrown the slogan out that between the two of us, we looked for 20 years and have one meteorite to show between the two of us, you know. But in all reality, we're not getting any younger, and so I probably
I
should
love
add
it.
at least 5 years to that statement and say, you know, we've looked for 25 years combined, and we
I
found one
love it.
meteorite between the two of us. At least 5 years, because we're not getting any younger.
Nope.
So
I mean, so when I started hunting for meteorites, I had 0 gray, and now I'm like, oh, now I'm
exactly,
50% gray.
right? Exactly. So I feel a little bit like that out here some days too. This is great because this is wide open prairie. The
Yeah.
chances of a witnessed fall out here are, great. It's a waiting game in that sort of sense for me because I've got my eyes on the sky and I'm waiting for a witnessed fall to land near me and hopefully hunt that someday. But in the meantime,
Oh, for sure.
I will settle for that cold find. And so I just relentlessly pound beat feet out on the prairie looking, like you said, just any random spot and just keep
Yeah.
looking and keep looking and keep looking. And I feel a little bit like instead of the tree problem that you have, I have a rock problem where they're
Yeah,
one amongst millions of other rocks. And so
exactly.
it's like, finding a needle in a haystack no matter where you're cold hunting. And so the number one impression that I really want to send everybody out of here with, if you only watch the first 5 minutes of this video, just know that if you think you're going to go out in your backyard or your neighbor's cornfield or and get lucky like that, you sure could, but it's just astronomical odds, and you can look for a very long time without finding one.
Yes.
So I just want people to know that, because we watch Meteorite Men and, like I say, this desert hunter guy, and it looks easy. They have great success. So, and have you hunted known Sternfields, Stephen?
Yes, I've hunted Indian Butte as well as Holbrook in Arizona.
And did you have luck at those known Sternfields?
Indian Butte, I did not have success,
Uh-huh.
and in Holbrook, I found a fragment that was about yay big. It was teeny tiny, but it felt like an accomplishment
Heck
after,
yeah.
2 days and 20 miles of hiking.
Mhm, absolutely. Especially after 10 years. But
Oh, yeah.
but
I
at
was like,
least
"This
you
is
you got an
easy."
armful of meteorite out of that effort, where Holbrook, you got what you paid for. You got your 2-day effort worth of
Oh,
token there. So, but yeah,
yeah,
that's wonderful. So yeah, the
yeah.
difference is, and still, even in an own strewn field, you can go hunt, like you say, for a couple of days and maybe not even then be successful.
Oh, for
So
sure. Yeah.
and I'm going to say welcome to just a couple more. Jennifer, Betty. We said hi to Betty. Jennifer, Ryan, and Rick Rock are here as well. Hopefully, everybody is enjoying the afternoon. And Rothrod's here. Welcome. So, we've given a brief introduction in what is a known strewn field versus a cold find, and what are the odds that you're going to get lucky in any of these situations. So, uh, you mentioned reading some books as a kid. Is that what got you into meteorites?
Yeah, I was big time into geology books, and unfortunately, meteorites they didn't take up a fair amount of those geology books, but usually tucked into the back in the last few pages, they threw meteorites in there, and I remember browsing those books. I love rocks too, so it was no problem reading through these books. But always I'd get to those last few pages and see meteorites, and I was like, how cool are those? Rocks from space. They didn't originate on Earth, and there's a few different primary compositions that diversify them and make them interesting. So um, that seeing those books, and then I remember even one time as a kid visiting Cape Cod, there was a rock shop that long since closed down. They had little samples of presumably NWA meteorites. But I remember that, and then metal detecting. So they kind of go hand in hand. So books as well as getting into detecting, I guess, kind of led me into that direction
Mhm.
of where I wanted to be looking for
Sad for
meteorites.
everybody who's watching. I do that. You do a fair bit of metal detecting and rock
Yeah,
hounding as well. In fact, your recent thing has been hunting sodalites on the beach, at night with a black light. And so I'm
yeah,
actually going to circle back around to that in the end, and we're going
yeah,
to talk a little bit more about what you get up to when you're not hunting meteorites. So,
absolutely,
but I do just want to add for everybody who's here right now that Stephen is a rock hound. So
big time,
not just a meteorite finder guy, but also a rock hound, and yeah, and admittedly so big time. So,
wholeheartedly. Yeah.
why did you start looking for a meteorite? What was the driving force there? What did you just decide one day when you were swinging? Did you find a hot rock? What got you going there?
Uh, it was It was purely it was purely and simply the idea of finding a meteorite. I liked that it was going to be a challenge. I knew that the odds were stacked against me. I didn't know how great those odds were, but I guess it was just a challenge where it was it was very gratifying in the sense that I could be out in my favorite place, which is, out in nature, uh, combined with rock hounding simultaneously, combined uh, primarily those two things. It gave me the ability to be outside and hike and rock hound, and then those great odds and challenges. And then if I always held that idea that that I would someday come across that trophy and find a meteorite, and it would just be this really great thing. And that was really the driving force behind it.
That's maybe why you and I are
That that
friends,
too.
um, let's see. Uh, so how did you learn what meteorites look like, or did you have any kind of role models or anything along the way? And uh, how long did you look? You said 10 years.
Yes, 10 years. So I got to Cape Cod, and I just consistently hunted on all my free time, after work, weekends, vacations. I would just head out to the woods and start looking. Um, as far as mentors, I guess a lot of it uh, had to do with my own drive. I grew up as a child, like being very curious, taking everything apart, trying to put it back together, like things like that. Really, I, I love knowing like the mechanics behind everything. As far as mentors, I didn't have too many. My father did get me a metal detector as a kid, and that was really cool. And maybe helped guide me in that direction. But really, if if I had to if I had to uh, name a mentor, it was it was myself. It was my drive. It was my own
Yeah,
drive that kind of
yeah,
helped
that's a
guide
good
me.
answer. That's a good answer.
Uh,
How many meteor wrongs do you think you found? How often were you bringing home a rock that was suspicious to do investigation and learning with?
so many. I brought home a lot of hot rocks, things that stuck to magnets, things that like oolitic stone with the tiny round things inside of it, tons of that, oolites or whatever. Uh, anything that kind of had resemblance to something metallic that was dark or had chondro looking things, I was scooping it up. And in fact, I was even like I was even reaching out to universities to be like, "Hey, is this a meteorite?" And uh, after a lot of failures, I came to the realization that I needed to educate myself a bit, and I started using that really resourceful website, the University of Washington. With
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall the guy's name off the top of my head, but there's a scientist there that created a website dedicated to meteor wrongs
Mm-hmm.
and
Is that the
meteorites and
one
that
with the
type of
flow chart
information.
on it?
Yes,
And the final answer, like if you pass all the, it's like send me a picture, and like that's actually really useful.
it is.
That's like I've ran it like I've held some of my meteorites and been like, okay, let's see. I always
it,
end up with yes, it's a meteorite, and if it's an earth rock, I always end up with no, it's not a meteorite. So
it can sincerely help a lot of people out, eh, because most of the time it's going to quickly filter out to no,
yeah,
unfortunately, but that's the
yeah,
reality. and
yes,
and with the more times you answer no, uh, you have a bigger chance of getting it right at some point. I mean, that's the law of odds. So yeah.
the more I brought those rocks home, the more I was getting familiar with them. And so
Yes,
the more I was able to, like, quickly reject them in the field,
for
and
sure.
just visual, and then vice versa too, the more I got familiar with meteorites, the more I was able to reject them as well, like, visual
Exactly.
inspection pretty much, so but yeah, at first for me too, I brought home everything. I love the way you described it. Anything that looked metallic, anything that looked like chondrite, anything that
it,
stuck to my magnet, did the
it
same thing. Like, you
was a
definitely
real
have to
it
I
was a
think
real
you've got
challenge at
to.
first.
Yeah, you've got to find some wrongs before you find a right. I mean, there's that rare example where, there's a Montana meteorite that an elk hunter found when he sat down to have some lunch. He just was
Yeah,
like, that rock looks weird. Okay, so every once in a while it
yeah,
happens, right?
yeah.
So, but like I'm with you, but every time you find a wrong, you educate yourself a little more and you better your odds of
That's it.
picking it out. So, um,
Definitely.
we had some memberships gifted here, so I got to ring the bell real quick.
Excellent.
Thank you, Lava Bison.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, and I see Opal Guy joined us. Yeah, so that I wanted to touch on that as well. So we're to the point now in our story where you've looked for 10 years for this thing. You've kind of
Yeah,
self-educated. You've found a lot of wrongs,
yeah,
a definition of insanity, going
it
on
is.
10 years. How many days is that? That's a lot of days. And I
It's
know,
a
like, you're actually one of the few people that I can say is like me, who is out multiple times a week
for
in
sure,
doing some kind of rock hounding or something, outdoors.
for
So,
sure.
hundreds of
I know
meteorons.
it took a long time, but I think I closed that gap more quickly because I was very persistent and
Agree.
actually, like, I mean, it requires a lot of your attention to scan through rocks, hours on end, and that's what you and I can do, several days a week, and that's what kind of closed that gap over the 10 years, and eventually I found
Yep.
it.
Yep. And again, it happens. Sometimes they fall through the roof or they hit your truck, or I mean, sometimes
Yeah,
you cannot leave your house and find a meteorite. But I think, in my mind, against these odds, when I face this challenge, this task, my opinion is the more often I get out, the more time I spend out there, the more likely I am going to find something. The
that's
more
it.
rocks I look at, the more opportunity there is to be one there. The more miles I make, the better
That's it.
chances. So,
Absolutely, definitely.
so
Yeah, yeah. You should, if you're interested in finding meteorites yourself, and looking for a cold find, just spend as much time out there as you can. Uh,
mhm,
it's good for you. It's fun. Um, I would challenge anybody to go for it.
agree. So, tell us about when you actually did finally find it.
So the day of,
Or
there was
just
this.
like any other day,
Just like any other day, this was a new area in Cape Cod. It was this West Barnstable woods that I hadn't really explored yet, and I got some trail maps of the area, and then I hiked it a couple times, and this new particular area called the Trail of Tears. Uh, I knew it was just very beautiful, so I took my kid and his mom out there at the time, for a hike out there. And of course, I was looking for rocks. And eventually, at some point in the trek, I found this 1,114 gram stone. So it was about the size of my hand. And I was like, "Whoa, this looks interesting." There was some spots on it which were chondrules, and there was oxidation. It had all the right looks. I don't know. I can't recall at the time if it actually felt more dense than terrestrial stones from my personal perspective at the time. But I took it. I was like, "This looks pretty good," and I put it in my backpack, and we continued on and we left.
Do you
I
have
took
that
that.
stone handy? Could you? actually show us that stone in your hand? Or no?
A lot a lot of that stone has actually, been dispatched and
Mhm.
sold.
Do you
And
have
that
one similar, of just a piece? I mean, I know
so,
some people saw the thumbnail,
I'm
but
gonna
some people are just popping in. Do you have a smaller piece? There you go.
so this right here is actually the sister slice to the type specimen, that UCLA received first, to take, a thin section of and do the microprobe work to confirm, the type of meteorite it was. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
this one right here actually has a very large inclusion,
Oh, I love
and
that.
yeah, it's about a centimeter in diameter, um, or a little. It's pretty close to a centimeter in diameter. Yeah, and in the original type specimen, because I used a pretty thick kerf blade, that was even quite a bit larger and porous. But this is off the original 1,113 gram stone that I found out in the woods, and I do still have plenty of the material, but unfortunately not that first one. I do wish
Yep.
I saved it in
No,
retrospect, but
just I
uh,
wanted to kinda demonstrate about what that looked like in your hand, but you're doing a good job, and just giving us a
definitely.
peek at it real quick was cool. So, let's pause there, and so you
Sure.
tossed it in your backpack, you
Okay,
carried
yeah.
on with your day, what happened?
Yep. So we got finished with the hike, we went home, and I took that backpack and I put it in the corner of the living room where it kinda sat for a couple weeks, so I must have been idle, must have not have been hunting that much, or at least didn't do anything crazy. But, and I remembered that stone, finding it, and I was like, "Oh, I should go check it out and file a window in this and see if there's anything good." And so this was like a couple weeks later, and I take the rock out and I filed a window in it with a metal rasp, and immediately I saw chondrules, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I think I actually found a meteorite," you know, and it was super exciting. I immediately snapped a bunch of pictures of it, and I searched the web for who's the best classifier out there to get in touch with. And Alan Rubin at the time was the classifier over at UCLA who I landed on, and
Mhm.
I sent an email to him with some images of the window, and at the time, simultaneously, I was, also sharing it on this nugget shooters forum, and, they weren't very helpful, to say the least. They were even though I had this, window on this 1,113 gram stone filed, and you could clearly see chondrules, people on there weren't helpful, but Alan Rubin reached out to me and he said, "Yeah, I think, there's a good possibility there you might have a meteorite, and if you wanna send a sample to me to check out and confirm if it's a meteorite, I'll do that for you." I said, "Alright." I was like, "What do you need?" And he's like, I need 10% of the mass or 100 grams, whichever is less or greater. I can't remember exactly the ratio there. And so I sent that sample off to Alan Rubin, and he received it, and I got a email confirming that it was a meteorite, and he agreed to classify it for free. And yeah, uh, and that kind of oh, it wasn't free; it was 120 bucks, but that's cheap in terms of nowadays. Yeah, it wasn't free. I'm sorry, it wasn't free. But, he agreed to classify it, and that set me off on the next series of hunts that led to the pretty extravagant main mass.
So you went back looking for more pieces of it?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I purchased a gold prospecting machine called a White's Goldmaster VSAT.
Mhm.
Well, actually, I have to rewind a little bit here, okay? This is very important part of the story. So when I found that rock out in the woods, I didn't do institute photos.
Yep.
I didn't take the geological coordinates. Um, so there was a problem here. I found this rock. I got home and confirmed it was a meteorite and all this stuff. But now I had to retrace my steps, and hopefully find another piece of meteorite. So
So you
the
could
other
say where it was found and
yes,
definitely
and
found. Yeah.
so yeah, so this was kind of a problem, and but the driving force behind me getting out there, so 1,113 grams is nothing to cough at, but I could tell because of the shape of the stone, because like say it was shaped like this is the outside edge, you could tell by the margins of where it had broken off or fragmented that it came off as something very big. So so that right there, I was like, okay, I got to get out there and hopefully cross my fingers I can find another piece. So I set out back to those trails, the Trail of Tears in West Barnstable, and I spent a day out there, and that day I found this fragment. It was about I want to say like I don't know 8 to 10 grams, and I pick it up off the ground. And this time I had a file with me to file a window. I
Hmm.
filed a window and I had a little magnifying glass and I was like, oh my God, I found another piece of Barnstable. So now I'm totally pumped up. Marissa actually owns that one of those pieces. She might own that one specifically. Um, and then I got my White's Gold Master VSAT gold prospecting machine, which is it's purpose built for gold, but it works extremely well on chondritic meteorites because
Hmm.
there's tiny bits of metal, and that's what those machines are sensitive to. So I got the machine. Now I knew where a small fragment was found, where likely other fragments could be possibly found. And I start swinging that thing out there, and I'm getting awesome signals everywhere in the ground. And do you want me to continue with this portion of the story? Okay.
So
so
you, but most importantly, do you get your gosh dang in situ picture finally?
at the end there, yes,
Yes.
of
Okay. Go
uh, of the
ahead.
main mass and some other fragments.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Keep going.
So, at this point, I'm on a roll. I'm swinging the detector. And pinpointing these tiny little fragments. They're just they're all over the ground in this one area. Um, and the fragments they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm going up this like kind of sloped trail, not just a real gradual slope. It
Can you
doesn't
show us the
matter
box of
too much.
fragments that you have?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. And then you're going up the hill. Oh, he's showing the whole thing, guys. I was gonna make him tease you. So these
I'm sorry.
fragments. There you
Yeah,
go.
so ti tiny fragments just like these. I was finding them all throughout the landscape around, and this is like a 5 foot wide path, and these aren't even from maybe some of them, maybe a couple of these mixed in, but these aren't even from what I was finding with the detective in those early days. But
Hmm.
you could easily find with a white gold master V set, you could find fragments this size, no problem.
Nice.
And that's that's a subgram fragment right there.
Hmm.
So I found thousands of fragments or hundreds of fragments. Um, this whole lot right here was actually with a different method eventually that I learned that I'll tell you about. But so those are the fragments I started finding, and they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Till eventually, I was I was uh, I was on my knees, uh, digging up this area that just sounded like wicked hot. It was beeping to high heaven. I had the detector in my left hand. I'm sitting there with a pickaxe. Not, I was really just like Neanderthal rudimentary about it. Just digging into the ground, and I'm pulling these fragments out that are like 300, 400, 500 grams a piece in one particular hole. It was like they were all there, and I just kept getting up with the detector swinging, and then so I'm digging these large fragments out of a hole, and I look over and I see this big rock, and it's like it's huge, and I'm looking at it, the backside of it, and it's just like this stained orange color, and I'm like, "There's no way." that that's a meteorite. It was like, there's just no way. And so I'm on the ground kneeling, and I reach over with a detector, and I swing over it, and it's just like beep, 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 like just so loud. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And so like I stood up from my spot, and I walk like the 3 or 4 feet over that it was, and I get over it, and I'm like, oh my god. And I couldn't see like the regolithic surface or fusion crust because it was just back. It was the back side of it where fragments had eroded off over the tons of years that
Like
it
I'd
was
rolled
sitting.
down the hill one time or something and landed
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way
you
up.
know?
Yeah.
And I picked the thing up, and I'm just looking at this ugly backside, and I flip the thing over, and it's just like this beautiful patinaed, like just glowing orange red patina that was clearly fusion crust and regolithic. And I was just, and it's a 24-pound beast. And I'm like, I can't believe it. I was like, this is like, this is a meteorite. And, like not only did I find like hundreds of fragments and 100-gram fragments, but this thing is gigantic, like Rick is saying. And so I I screwed up again right there because I picked it up without the institute photos. But this thing was sitting in a spot where you could see like there was an imprint there, not from falling or anything, but everything was rotting around the forest. Yeah. So I put it there, and I wanted to be kind of true to self, so I cocked it off of that imprint, so you know people could realize that I did move it, but but it's there, I didn't try to place it perfect and do anything crazy. So I took that photo next to my detector head, and which I think I may have sent you a photo of. Um, it has the White's Goldmaster VSAT detector head in there. I hope I sent that over to you.
I don't see that one, no.
Yeah, yeah, it's very hard when you're excited. It
Yeah,
it's
I wanna know
difficult
what
to
you
think of.
said, like, were you in the woods, like, rolling around on the ground hugging it, or were you like, "Oh my god, oh my god?" I like,
So
what did you say to yourself? Like, was your heart just
my heart was pounding out of my chest.
did you feel like you just, like, stole something from somebody? Like, you or,
I
like
did, I did, I felt that way. I was like, it felt illegal to hold a meteorite this big. It belonged in
right,
a
right.
museum. Uh, and so I picked up the stone, I flipped it over, see that it's a meteorite, and I'm like, yes. And so like, I'm a true believer in button up holes and stuff like that. If you dig
Yep,
things, you got to fill them back in. So I buttoned up everything real quick, grabbed the coordinates, took the picture, threw Barnstable main mass in the back of my backpack, and I was like a mile out in the woods probably, and from where my vehicle was, and I just like I hooked it. I was just walking at a power pace through the woods, and I'm calling my brother. I was like, Sam, I just found the biggest meteorite ever. You're not gonna believe it. He's like, well, get over here to my house. You gotta show me. And then I think I called my dad, my uncle. Like I was like, I was calling everybody. I was like, oh, I actually found a big meteorite. And I I got to my brother's house, and uh, that's one of the first primary photos of me with the main mass. He took a picture of me on the deck, and he was actually still skeptical at the time. He's like, all right,
it just looks
cool.
like
It's
a
it's a
rock to him.
meteorite, but like, he doesn't know much about meteorites, but yeah.
Yep, yep. Let's see
But
it.
yeah,
Let's see it now that we've talked about how it made you feel.
yeah.
You wanna hold it for us, or do you wanna show us?
Oh, I can hold it for you. So there's the 24-pound main mass. I call this the shoulder piece. It'll always stay with it. But this was a fragment that I detected out of the ground separately from the
Uh-huh.
main mass. And here, I'll clear the space a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. And then again, like you said, it started with little pieces at the bottom of the hill, and as you went up, they got bigger,
Yes,
bigger, and bigger.
yes.
And you think you're on it because it's just lighting your detector up, and like you say, you
Oh, for
glance at it
sure.
like, nah, you glance again, and you
Yeah.
like, you get a signal off of it, and then just, oh my God,
It, it
seriously.
it's wild because so this is what I saw right here. If I was, if you couldn't see this part of it, all as I saw was this side from where I was detecting. So say it was sitting in the forest. That's all I saw right there. This was covered in leaves, and it was just like, you know, it, it's not the prettiest thing on the backside of it,
No,
but
it's not.
but that's what I was looking at, and then after I flipped it over in my hands, which I'll show you right now, I'll get it in my lap here. Just set up my tripod. So this is where all these fragments weathered off of.
Mm-hmm.
That's where this weathered off of. I call that
Mm-hmm.
the shark fin piece, and all everything came off the backside because this side's complete. I'll flip the camera around here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the monster.
Oh my God, I just can't believe that thing.
It's big and heavy, and if I have the right lighting in here, if I angle it a little bit, you can see these regmaglyphs right
Yep.
there,
Yep.
really deep, and that all of that is the sulfides or whatever that weathered out of it over time. It has one of the highest weathering grades that a
Mm-hmm.
meteorite can be assigned. It's W5 weathering. Essentially, all of the all of the metal within this meteorite has been converted to other oxides or sulfides or whatever
Mm-hmm.
over time. But this right here, um, what what makes it even more special is it's a shield-oriented meteorite. Um,
Mhm,
so a lot of meteorites, when they come through the atmosphere, they're unstable and they'll actually tumble and just become these really round, kind of potato shaped things. This one on the way down, it stayed like this the entire flight, all the way through dark flight, and then hit the ground. So that all 30 pounds of this, whatever it was, before it broke apart. And so this is called shield oriented, and
mhm.
you can see right here one of the leading edges, and at at one time, I'm sure it was more pronounced, but you could even see some bubbly crust that happened along this rollover lip.
That's
Um,
so cool.
yeah,
So there's a couple of questions.
sure.
When was this find?
So this was August 18th, 2018.
And then another somebody said how long from the first find until the main mass find? And I want to know like both words meanings of the word long if you don't mind, like
Sure,
time-wise and distance if you don't mind.
sure. So the first 1113 gram fragment that was August 18, 2018.
And you say it
Um,
was like in a walking path?
yeah, so
Like literally in the path, like people kicked it on the way by us,
yes,
or
yes,
for
yeah.
real?
So yeah, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But this was approximately like a 25 by 5 area. Like say the
Okay.
width of a trail 5 feet, and then it was
Yep.
about 25 feet of where all of the fragments had gone. So um, so as far as timeline goes, that first fragment, August 18th, 2018, I continued to like go back and search the place and find
Mhm.
more and more fragments. And then this main mass I found on September 11th, 2018. So
So, a little
so
bit of time, and then, of course, the 10 years prior to that before you even got, you know,
yeah, 10 years prior to that,
before
yeah.
you even
I
put a toe in the pool. So
exactly. So I think initially um I spent a lot of time working with the original 1113 gram stone, figuring out how to cut that and send it to Alan Rubin,
sure,
and
sure.
eventually got more into the mode of actually hunting it again, and then I started finding the larger and larger fragments, and eventually found this. Um,
Sure. And then while you're holding it and showing it to us, do you want to explain to us how you found some of those smaller pieces when you went back later?
yeah, definitely. That's one of the favorite parts of my story. Um, so so what actually happened was all of these little fragments. It's not like it actually separated an atmosphere and came down and just like shotgun blasted this one place. Um, what happened was all of the humidity that Cape Cod has and the freeze thaw cycles uh, uh, just eroded this thing and popped all the fragments off. And so, as I was explaining before, this path was sort of at a slope, and the recreation that it's generally used for is like more or less mountain biking, but people can walk it as well. So, um, so all of the fragments that you see, they came off of the back of this. They weathered off from those freeze thaw cycles primarily. But what I think happened with the main mass, uh, I think at one point in time, because the grade of this path to where the trail is and the land around it, it was eroded so much. I think that what happened was over time the ground eroded from the trail riding and everything else, and eventually I think this thing actually popped out of the surface and was exposed. And I think probably one day a mountain biker was rolling through there and he hit the stone or something and just decided to take this thing, pick it up, and just throw it off to the side of the path like it was rock. Because that's very common, like in mountain bike areas, like people just throw rocks to the side just to get them out of the way. So I think that's what actually happened with the main mass because a majority of the fragments were like directly in the middle of this path or in the embankment even. Um, so that's one of the cooler parts of the story, only because if you actually think about it, somebody probably actually got their hands on this before me, but discarded it as just a terrestrial stone. And even oh yeah, even all the other pieces. Yeah,
All
definitely.
right, like that's crazy. So I do want to just real quick before we circle back around to some of the little
Sure,
pieces and how you found them, I
sure.
want to emphasize that you did not find this with a metal detector either, that you were literally just on the trail
Yeah,
with your family and it was a visual ID, correct?
exactly. And that was something that I was educated on um, from all of the reading that I did and all the resources that I looked through.
Mhm.
If you were going to cold hunt, a metal detector will only slow you down. You really should just go visually until you find something, and then break out the metal detector. You know, if
Mhm.
there's potential to find more fragments,
Mhm.
um,
And
it should
the almost opposite can be true when you're going to a known strewnfield where you're almost better off to bring a metal detector to some of those because the
exactly.
surface has kind of been picked
Yeah,
by many, many hunters, you know? So, but yeah, I agree. And I think that that's really important to add too, that, um, it you're gonna find so many wrongs before you find a right, and
yeah.
that, like you said, against all odds, there it is sitting, just 10 feet away from you. Man, if you'd have been squatted down just the other direction and it hadn't caught your attention, or the leaves had been an inch deeper, you maybe
I
wouldn't
know.
have ever found the main mass. So it
Yeah,
it's again, it's like your perseverance, your attention to detail, your willingness to slow down and to take, hunt this fall, which
yeah.
one brings me back to how did you get the little box of rocks? The little ones.
So, um, one of my friends, John Higgins, he, he's a meteorite dealer, and I met him because of Barnstable. Uh, Early on, he was in disbelief of the whole thing, of the whole story, and you know he kind of he reached out to me to inquire about like me finding the meteorite, but there was expressed disbelief about it. So I was like, you know what, John, why don't you come over here and you can find some fragments yourself. I definitely didn't find everything. You know, I found a lot of large fragments and cool stuff, but I was like, come on, anytime you want, come over here. And so he brought himself and one of his other friends, Derek, along to hunt, and we went out there, and they had metal detectors, they had flags to put in the ground where they find stuff. They thought they were going to make this into a really elaborate process, and Derek, he he came up with this brilliant method to extract fragments out of the ground, because there were just so numerous that there had to be a way to get a lot out of the ground a lot easier. So what I saw him doing was he was taking like a tiny little garden rake that you would, like, manicure a little garden bed with, and he was digging it into the ground, breaking it up, loosening up the soil, and then he would take a magnet and he would sit there rubbing it through the soil. He'd pull his magnet out and it'd have like 20 little fragments all over it. I was like, "Geez, this is incredible."
Yeah,
I didn't.
yeah.
Unfortunately, at that time, I didn't have a magnet or a little rake with me, but it didn't matter anyways. I was out there. We were friends at that point. They were super excited, finding their own fragments, and that was a joy. Uh, it was a joy in itself and a great experience. So I at least took away that method. I kept it in my head. I was like, all right, I got to return here now with
Mhm,
a magnet and a little rake and break up the ground and see if I could find more myself.
mhm,
Um, so I did a series of hunts afterwards, strictly with friends. Didn't return there for myself because I wanted to share the experience now at this point. I had found the main mass and all those other large fragments. So I was like, this is going to be a great way to make friends in the meteorite community, and all these guys that I had there hadn't find meteorites of their own, and it gave them the opportunity, and it gave us the opportunity to become friends and this and that. So after the next hunts that I went on, I made sure I brought my rake and my magnet, a very strong magnet that John Higgins actually gave to me, and I started doing like these little archaeological digs. I would look for a hot spot with the metal detector where you can hear that they were in the ground, but would be just difficult to dig. And I'll tell you something about that too. But um, and I'd break up the ground where there was a hot spot, and sure as heck, I'd pull the magnet out, and there would be tons of fragments on it. This is from one particular hunt with Brett Joseph. That's when I broke out that method and really went hard on it, because he he was aggressively hunting it while he was there, and I was like, all right, this is a man on a mission. I'm gonna go a little hard on it too to kind of balance the scales here. And
yeah,
and I
right.
ended up finding a ton of fragments. And and I remember posting about these, and they were like, some people online were like, no way, those are all meteorites. It's got to be hot rocks. And I was like, no, I'm telling you, they're actual meteorites. And I filed windows on it that afternoon or whatever after I published the video. And I don't know if this is going to show up well.
I can see
I'll
some
bright
chondrules in those little pieces, yeah.
you might be able to catch some chondrules in there.
I wanna answer a couple questions really quick.
Sure. Yeah,
Jennifer
absolutely.
says, "How old do you think this is? How long do you think that it was on Earth?" And we can answer that with some confidence due to the classification, right? Which, by the way, just what is the classification? And we'll break that down real quick.
So the classification is H4 S1 W5. So
Okay.
that
So H1 is ordinary chondrite.
yes,
Yes. The S and the W that you say later stand for shock and weathering.
correct.
So before we talk about the weathering, what was the shock number?
One.
So not a very shocked meteorite. Like you say, it did
No,
stay in mostly one piece as it came through the atmosphere.
Yes.
So again, indicated in that classification and visually on the external features of the meteorite. And then the
Yeah.
weather grade was what?
The weather grade is W5.
Which is
The
again
the
the
it's the
highest you
highest.
can get. So that tells us what, Stephen?
That it's a very old meteorite.
It's been on Earth for a long time.
It
Yes.
has been
And you
on Earth
said
for a
too
long
that
time.
like you can see internally that a lot of the iron, nickel, or the camosite or any kind of metal that it had in it has pretty much terrestrialized into what, like a
And
hematite or some sort of
yeah,
um
yeah, like, I think it's like goethite and some other, different oxides or whatever. I mean, this is almost a fossil meteorite, and
mhm,
if you look carefully at the exterior surface, I'll flip it over here.
mhm, mhm,
You can see how terrestrialized it is. So this is a joint that if it stayed out in the woods, it would have eventually
mhm,
fractured and broke to pieces. But it's all filled in with oxidation and minerals. And it
mhm,
might be hard to visualize that, but you could see the dark lines along these fractures of how much it has been reduced and terrestrialized, but,
mhm,
just
mhm,
just from those dark edges along those seams. Those aren't like shock planes or anything like
mm-mm,
that. That's
mm-mm.
just
No, those are
that's
terrestrial weathering for sure.
yeah, exactly, and you might even be able to catch some chondrules in the surface.
Mhm,
100% positive, but, this is purely, the result of weathering. Here's some of that rollover lip. Can you see
I can.
the
I
vesicles in the
can.
fusion crust? The bad word in meteorites, vesicles.
Wow,
I
that's
didn't say
cool.
that. We'll call it holes. That whole side is rollover lip, but look how weathered this is. I'm
Mhm.
sure I'm sure if I really wanted to, I could probably pry as hard as I can and maybe snap off a piece like
You
that.
probably could, and like you say, it might have taken another handful or even 100 of handful of years to have started popping those other pieces off, but it was definitely bound and determined to happen. That
For
thing is on
sure.
its way to breaking
I
in
mean, look at
100 different ways there, yeah.
just look at that. It's expanded that much over time. These 2 points used to be in touch with each other and completely connected, and now it's expanded that much. I
Mhm,
mean,
mhm.
fortunately, I keep it nice and dry in a box,
Yep, yep.
and despite its appearance right now, it's actually very stable.
Mhm,
I truly believe that it won't break anymore as long as it
mhm,
doesn't get, like, dropped or mangled.
mhm.
But there we go. You can see those regamaglips
Or
right there.
tossed off of a bike trail again.
Oh my goodness, right?
Oh
Can you believe
gosh.
that?
The
Uh,
next question we had
sure.
was how big of an impact crater would it have made?
So if if everybody is familiar with that large crater in Arizona, that was
Mhm,
Canyon Diablo. That was created by an iron meteorite, and really, in general, um, a majority of the of impact craters are created by iron meteorites because what happens is that they're usually so massive they can't lose any of that and that speed through the atmosphere that chondritic meteorites, which are less dense, tend to lose. So an iron meteorite comes crashing through the atmosphere, doesn't lose any speed, and they're going between 24,000 and 70,000 miles per hour. They hit the ground, they make a crater. But these
mhm,
things are light in comparison. And sure, they're traveling 24 to 70,000 miles per hour. But when they crash through the atmosphere and they're slowed down from all that pressure that's on the nose of those meteorites, by the time they go into dark flight, they're going between 4 to 600 miles per hour, and, something of this density, sure, it can punch into the ground, but it's not really gonna make a crater. It might punch into it. There are rare examples, I think it's called Caracas, that was ordinary chondrite that did actually make a large crater, but it was probably an asteroid,
mhm,
and sure, it broke up and impacted the ground, and people would think like, "Oh, you're telling me an asteroid hit we don't know about it?" Because Caracas is relatively new. Um, that made a crater, but this one, At 30 pounds, um, it, it, there was no crater here.
Mhm.
Um, another one of the things I theorize going back to age is that uh, uh, one time in the geological history of Cape Cod, it was covered in glaciers, and the area that I found it and where it may have been buried at one point in history, it's all glacial moraine, and basically all of Cape Cod is the result of glacial activity.
Mhm.
And I think what happened was I think a good possibility was this may have impacted a glacier as it was receding at during the ice age maybe, and then just came to rest on the surface, like and intermingled with the glacial moraine. If
Mhm.
that gives you an
Mhm.
idea of age. Uh,
Sure.
yeah, so no
I was gonna
impact.
mention that. I was gonna say it's really hard to say how old this thing is, what the terrain actually looked like there. I mean, if it's a bog, it might sink into a little more than it would if it landed,
Yeah,
on some hard packed or, anything like that. So
the
it is going to
surface matters.
vary from stone to stone, but I do want to second what you said that even a lot of the iron meteorites that fall or pallasites and heavier stuff that does fall, if it isn't bit too big, if it isn't so big and that a lot of the meteorites that we witness falling go through what's called dark flight. So that thankfully our atmosphere is doing a great job protecting us from a
Yes,
catastrophic event, hopefully. But when they come in, and I've always compared it to doing a belly flop. When you hit the water, you feel the resistance. And the air
yes,
is really no different to something that's traveling that fast. It is literally
exactly,
like a belly flop. It is violent
for sure.
brakes applied to this thing that's trying to burn through our atmosphere. And
Oh
so we
yeah,
visually see the burning part where they get bright and we're like, oh, look, a shooting star or a meteorite or, whatever we call it when we see it in the sky as a person on the ground.
yeah,
And then usually, if it's big enough to land on the ground later, it usually stops burning
yep,
visually what we see burning and then carries on through what we call dark flight. And the only reason why that happens is because it has slowed down enough to stop burning.
yep,
So it's continuing still through that dark flight to slow even more. And I've heard
exactly.
the comparison made that sometimes by the time they hit the ground, they're really not going any faster than maybe a golf ball. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah, they don't have to be
obviously, I
hitting.
think that Barnstable probably made a bit of an impact. It's kind of a chunky monkey, but yeah, I think that it maybe killed dinosaurs or anything. That's quite doubtful.
Yeah,
Thank you, lava bison. Unless it, struck a dinosaur. I don't think it was that kind of um, violent event. So, but
yeah,
very impressive nonetheless.
thank you. Yeah,
So, um, again, against all odds, you hunt for 10 years, day
yeah,
after day, never finding anything. You keep going anyway. What keeps you going, by the way? Is it just the fascination for the things you did find along the way, or just that,
yeah,
you know,
I mean,
per, like
I
headstrong perseverance, or how do you keep going when you don't find anything?
yeah, I'm a extremely persistent person. You know, when I dedicate myself to something, it's hard for me to not give up. I think it's a little bit of that. I think there's a lot of other things that intermingle with hunting meteorites that also makes it enjoyable. You know, you're out in nature, you're hiking, you're moving, you're finding rocks too. There's so many beautiful rocks out there too to enjoy while you do it. Uh, I think it's a combination of all those things that gave me the persistence to keep going.
Hmm.
Um, and I, one of the things also that kept me going is if you think about it, anywhere that you're looking out into the woods, there could potentially be a meteorite. Um, there's one theory that says there's like a 30 gram, there's likely a 30-gram specimen in like within a 3 acre area. Well,
Hmm.
one 30-gram specimen in a 3-acre area. I don't know how they came up with that number. Perhaps it was from the scientists in Antarctica being able to find and plot all of those meteorites that they found out there. But
Sure,
but that
sure, because
that
that's very
that's the
undisturbed
yeah.
terrain,
So
right?
that's the
Sure.
real possibility. So I knew that at some point if I kept going, I was going to find one, and I did.
Yeah. Do you feel any different now that you have? I mean,
Um, yeah, I mean, it's a big time. This meteorite, gave me a lot of camaraderie in the meteorite community.
mhm,
A lot of people know about it at this point. I love that it's like published in a scientific literature, like that. My name associated with this meteorite being in scientific literature. I feel like if I think about it, I'm like I actually contributed to science. In a really cool way. It's a meteorite, and those are some of the things I love about it.
I'm gonna ask you this because and I know the answer, and I'm we're both gonna get a chuckle out of this, so I'm warning you. But I'm gonna ask you this because I know there are people out there who have this mentality. Did you get rich, Steven?
No. You will not get rich from meteorites unless you find something really special. Or
Yes.
I'll never say never. I'll never say never. Meteorites are very valuable, but finding the right buyer and, when you're dealing with something so large, it's people don't have that type of money to just fork out. They're spending very cautiously and consciously. So I didn't become rich off of it, but I've made quite a bit of money selling fragments off of it. I will say that, and I've made some nice trades for other
Mhm.
meteorites. But I I didn't go out hunting for meteorites for monetary value. I did it because I was very interested in meteorites.
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
it out of
well,
love
I
and
just had to
passion,
throw it in there
not for
because,
money.
I mean, how many times have you heard, "Oh, yeah, all those guys all you gotta do is go find a meteorite and then you'll just get rich," or,
It
"Yeah, if one would just,
it
land
just
in my
irks
backyard, I'd get rich." Well,
it irks me and drives me nuts every time I see a dollar value assigned to like an artifact or an object that people find. Like I read an article, I see the dollar signs, and immediately I turn away. I don't even want to read it anymore. It's like, okay, whatever. It's worth $10 million. I'm not going to do
yeah,
the gesture, but yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can sell it for that.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that your mother loves it and would cry if you ever did sell it. And I've
Yeah.
also heard rumors that it's actually almost in a way a sense or a way kind of a burden because you have it in your possession and you truly wish that it was maybe even on loan or something to a museum so that people could see it and
Yes.
enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely the case. I love that I have it, but unfortunately it's not on display in where I live, which I could change easily in the future, which I will. But it I would be really happy if this meteorite ended up in a museum. Where it'll be curated and protected and preserved. So eventually, I think that's what will happen to it versus me selling it in a private sale and having the meteorite potentially dispatched and cut up into large
Mhm.
or small pieces.
Mhm.
So that's the outlook for Barnstable. It is for sale. The right dollar sign could certainly have it, but I'm primarily looking to reach out to institutions that
Mhm.
deal with meteorite collection and preservation versus dealers that would cut it up.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that about that. That you know, we often say, too, that we don't necessarily own these meteorites. We only get to keep them while we're
Yeah,
here. That once we're gone, then what with them, you know? And so I love that you've actually kind of thought ahead about what you want to see done with it or not see done with it. Like you said, please don't chop it up into bits and sell it as dinner plate slabs. It ain't even
No,
that pretty. Please don't do that to
no,
it.
no.
And again, 100,000 times we hear it, find a meteorite, you'll get rich. And so I just had to, I apologize.
Thank you. No, no, you don't
But
apologize. That's,
again, I want this to be educational. And so, somebody watches this, you get a for real expectation of what it's like. Both, well, we've touched on both hunting a known strewnfield and making a cold find. What can you expect? You know,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
you can expect it to give you a gosh dang heart attack when it actually happens. You can expect
exactly.
to run down a mountain with a very big rock in your backpack, phoning all your friends and family. And
It'd
then
be very winded
Cynthia
and
asks
sweaty.
in the questions, she says, "Did it get a name?" And I hear that the name was a bit controversial. That the first suggestion might have been the Cape Cod meteorite, and that it didn't receive that name in some
Yeah,
way, shape, or form, right? That maybe
yeah,
somebody suggested something different, or
yeah, yeah. So it did get a name. I didn't get to choose it. That's a misconception. A lot of times, I've heard it very often. People think like, "Oh, what'd you pick for a name?" That's not how it works, unfortunately. I would have liked Cape Cod meteorite, but in the end, the name Barnstable. Barnstable is the name of this meteorite. It's near
Barnstable.
Barnstable. People like that's with the Boston accent. Barnstable.
Yes.
The name's become near and dear to me in the meteorite. I'm glad it has Barnstable as a name. So the what
Yeah,
happens is
The Cape Cod meteor just ain't quite the same ring, right? Like it's
yeah,
not quite right.
exactly. Yeah, the nomenclature committee is actually who chooses the name. The name is suggested by the classifier, and that's what Alan Rubin did. He suggested uh, Barnstable meteorite, and it's a I didn't want to argue with him. I was just like so glad that the meteorite is being classified. I wasn't gonna be like, oh, can we call it Cape Cod or
Right, right. For sure.
uh,
No way.
but
That just yeah.
I'm glad we chose that name. And backstory to all of this, and people, you real if you find a meteorite, you have to stick to your guns. You have to do the proper documentation. You have to take in situ photos, GPS coordinates. You have the burden of proof for when if and when you find a meteorite. Um,
Absolutely.
and a little bit of backstory to that topic. It was so when I found this meteorite, it was controversial because it was found in a place where meteorites are not generally found. The
Two,
northeast,
or was yours the second?
mine's the second to
Yeah.
Hampton. Northampton Iron is the first,
Yep.
and uh, so the nomenclature committee at first suspected that this meteorite may have been a transplant. And what they do with transplant meteorites is they get what's called a nova designation. And if you search the meteorite bulletin, you can search nova, 1 through 1,000. I don't know
Hmm.
how many novas are actually out there, but um, and the reason why they wanted to give it that designation is because they were not certain. Um, they weren't too certain. They weren't feeling comfortable with me finding a meteorite in the Northeast. Um,
Hmm.
but I had tons of evidence, institute photos, GPS coordinates, and so
You'd
I
taken
yeah I had to
several others
write
out there with you, and
yeah
they
I
also
took
confirmed
hunters
it
out
with
there
their own finds, and yep.
exactly. So I had to write a couple of follow up emails after Alan Rubin got back to me and said, "Hey, the nomenclature committee, they want to give it this name," and I've heard about Nova designation at that point because of all the
Hmm.
research I had been doing with the Met Bowl and everything else, and I was furious because that's my
It
name and
almost
legacy
feels
living there.
like a you're dishonest until proven honest instead of honest until proven dishonest. Like they didn't even really have to have a reason except that doubtful that you actually did this.
It
That
was
is
it
I
was
mean, I
real.
don't mean to be harsh. I just mean to be
Yeah,
direct and to the point,
yeah,
you
definitely,
know?
and it
So
was
so
really
and again, like you said, be aware of that. If you think you may have actually found a meteorite, be sure to document it
documented.
every way you can. Yes.
Mhm. You know, bring things like a scale cube. Some of the things that I bring meteorite hunting is now I bring this is a Garmin GPS, and
Mhm.
it'll display chords on there. I don't think there's any power in there right now, but this unit will display coordinates on there. So if you're gonna go out and hunt meteorites and you find one, what do you do? You'll break out your camera. You'll take
Mhm.
an in situ photo of the meteorite as it sits without any interruption. You don't want to put your hand in the photo. You don't want to put a scale cube. You just want to take some in situ photos from different angles to get that first few bits of documentation down. You don't want
Mhm.
to pick it up and move it. So then, after you do that, you can take some pictures with, say, a scale cube on top of it, so people know the size of it, of the fragment, or next to it, you could put a scale cube. And then you want to break out your GPS device
Get your
and
coordinates in your
take
photo
some
as
pictures.
well.
Yep. And then at that point, you're okay to remove the specimen.
Mhm. Mhm.
But really, that those are the types of things you need to think about if you
Like you
if you
said with the main mass, even though it had left a little imprint in the ground, we are all as rock hounds pull up a rock and it leaves a little spot, even
yeah,
if you've maybe already picked it up and moved it, do that photograph with the impression that matches the rock right next to it. Like I love
definitely.
that idea as well. That's doing
Yeah,
the next best thing that you can to say, look, I pulled it out of the ground right there.
exactly. You know, if I were to do this now, I'd pick it up out of the ground and, I would take a picture of
Yep.
the meteorite with the imprint next to it.
Yep.
Um, those are just those are ways you have to handle it to be taken serious.
Yep. Yep.
Because that circumstance that I was in for a little bit,
That
it
just blows
was
my mind
dreadful.
that it was this close to getting a Nova number for just a minute. And
Yeah,
again, not to discredit Nova meteorites or anything like that, but to be almost like lost with
yeah,
a Nova number instead of a name,
yeah,
that would have been a travesty, especially number 2 to the state. The
yeah.
second meteorite found in the state
It would have been,
in
yeah.
I mean, all of existence. That would have just been so sad. Oh my
It
gosh.
would have
So
it would have been,
I mean,
yeah.
I
I'm
think
glad I'm
Jennifer
glad
had
I
said earlier in the story, like, could you imagine what this rock could tell? It sat in the trail, had been bumped, kicked, and it like literally almost just like waited for the right person to find it.
exactly, and I'm generally a very passive person, and, but I was so passionate about meteorites after finding one that, um, when I got those follow-up emails from Alan Rubin, you know, me being a passive person, maybe traditionally, if it was something stupid like, "Oh, it's a coin, that's not part of the shipwreck out there," maybe if I wasn't very passionate about it, I'd be like, "Alright, whatever, I'll take what I have."
Sure.
But this
Sure.
this this meteorite is so important, and, the whole story is just wild that, like, it 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 it's it has to be published that way, and, fortunately, I wrote long emails with them. I told Alan Rubin, I was like, share all the photos, share all the institute photos, and all every time that I went out and hunted and came back with fragments and this, that, the other thing, check my bank records. I don't care. I did not buy this meter. um,
I love too how you put the meteorite before yourself too. You're like, I'm gonna fight passionately for my meteorite, and then it's like, yeah, but like, and let's not forget, like, you looked for this for 10 years, and again, against all
yes.
odds, in a wooded area, lots of leaf litter, not the best terrain for looking.
No,
Again, it's
no.
almost the definition of insanity to keep going out and looking for a cold find day after, week after week, month after month,
Hey,
year after year. I'm pushing now like decade after decade,
I
and that's not abnormal. I knew that when I started that you know what? I may never find one. So I darn well better enjoy looking, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah,
and I obviously definitely do, or I wouldn't do it like I do it. I
definitely.
definitely do.
It
So,
so if you're familiar with Cape Cod, it's a really small, geologically really small place. I've exhausted Cape Cod, in my opinion, for looking for meteorites. I may go occasionally nowadays, and like if I feel like swinging a detector, but it's that hard. It's that hard. I spent a lot of time doing it, and I'll wait till I'm out in the Southwest and no, and in new places, known strewnfields, or I'll cold hunt out there. But the
mhm.
woods, that's a whole other story. It would have to be really good circumstances for deep woods for me to want to hunt it. There would have to be a lot of exposed rock.
For sure. And not only is it like literally the definition of insanity, insanity, but imagine what it looks like to people who don't get it. Like, here's
No.
this dude out wandering around in the woods, like crawling around on his hands and knees with a magnet in the dirt. Like, like that is actual dedication, right? Like,
Oh yeah, mountain bikers, like two blind corners, like
and you
flying
don't
down
even
the trail, and all
care.
of a sudden I'm like jumping up and backing out of the trail, like
Here's Steven chewing on
looking
his
like a
jerky,
weirdo.
swinging his detector, his magnet through the dirt. He don't even care. Is they're like, yeah, jumping over the top of him and like side eyeing
Somebody
him on the
wants
way by. Like, what is that dude doing? Yeah,
somebody
Art
wants.
was worried about how bald your head was feeling. Oh, you froze on my one screen. Oh no. Oh no. Some red cones with you, says the opal guy. I wonder if I boot him out if he'll come back in. Or if what we should just look at him. Look, yeah, again, look how gray. He's like, again, when I started, I was so young looking, and now I'm like gray, and I get to pick on him. Time for a commercial, right, Art? Uh, the Kool Aid guy is gonna smash through your wall. Oh, poor guy. Oh, goodness. The only question I didn't get to for Steven there, he's officially um sayonara there for just a minute. Yeah. Oh, last I yeah, you could try to jump back in, Steven, if you want to. I'll keep an eye on you there. Yep. Hopefully that works. If it doesn't, just let me know. Ah, nope. Yes, no. Yes, no. No. I need to see the button before he's back. Were they? It's been relatively not bad today on in all honesty, especially considering I'm doing things like having guests. Let's see. Okay, there he is. Okay, well, you're back.
Dude, I'm so sorry.
That's
I don't-
okay.
I have no idea what happened. I
So,
was like,
oh my god, I love that.
somebody wanted to see a hat on it, and that's what I was going to do.
I love that. Yeah, Art's hanging out with us, by the way. Hi, Art.
All right, how's it going, bud?
Right? We look forward to hanging out with him later this evening.
Would
Um,
you like? Would you
you
like
had
to see
talked
North?
a little bit about like what's next for you. Are you still hunting? And you talked about like, I'm kind of done with that. I'd like to maybe go do some other stuff.
Yeah,
Definitely. Oh, it doesn't matter where you go. You've always got your eye on the ground, don't you?
absolutely, yeah. I,
Yeah.
and it's not that I have given up on meteorite hunting. It's just, I've exhausted Cape Cod in my opinion. I don't really do a whole lot of driving. I work a lot, so
Mhm.
it's a little bit of a prohibitive time in my life to do as much meteorite hunting as I'd like. But the biggest reason is, I don't get off Cape Cod very much. If I'm vacation, I'm spending time with family right now and stuff like that. So I will pursue more hunting once I move out west, which someday I anticipate doing. Um, and
Mhm.
there'll be better grounds for me to hunt.
Mhm. Mhm. New
But now
grounds.
but now that gives me plenty of time to rock hunt, which I do a lot of.
Which that's what are you up to nowadays? And let's talk about that just a little bit. What are you up to nowadays?
So nowadays, I purchased a 365 nanometer wavelength UV light directly from Mr. Light himself at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show, I believe in 2020 or something like that. I
Mhm.
had to get one because the reason why I bought it is because we have uh, one beach in particular on Cape Cod that's very rocky, and I was like, well, if he's finding those glow rocks on the Great Lakes, and that's from glacial activity, I'm sure the same thing is present here on Cape Cod at this beach, or maybe it'll be present here on this beach, and last year when my son moved to Texas, um, and that freed up a lot of time for me. I was like, "Oh, I got this light," and I charged it up one night, and I headed out to that beach, and sure enough, like 20 minutes in, I started finding sodalite cyanite, which is that stone that glows beautiful orange and spotted under that UV light, and
Mhm.
now I've spent hundreds of hours and miles hunting those, and I even got a friend involved. One of my coworkers, he hunts it too. It's fun.
You guys are out there, like I say, a couple few times a week if you can, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I know.
Two,
I'm
two or
a
three times a week. I mean, if the
I'm a
tides are good, we're out there multiple times a week for sure.
yeah, I'm a diehard too, and I'll do it. You've told me too, like, oh my God, we're freezing out here today, or you know,
Yeah.
I'll do it too when like a sane person would not. Like the wind's like pushing you around and you're still out there with looking at
I guarantee you, I was the only guy on that beach when it was 10 degrees out and 40-mile-per-hour gale force
right?
winds and white caps crashing and spraying you with ocean spray.
Be honest with me. Have you ever forgot your backpack or anything and had to carry your rocks out in your shirt like a 6-year-old?
Yeah, yeah, I've done that a couple times. Yeah,
Okay, good.
I've been very regretful not having my backpack, but yeah, yeah, you got to have a backpack. If you're one to just pick up one rock and take it home with you, fine, all right. But
They're
yeah,
like Tito chips for me. I can't have just one.
I
Yep.
I have backpacks like this with straps and bug spray, and I put my water in there, all that stuff,
Yeah.
all in the name of rocks. That-
Perfect. Speaking of, advising bug sprays and backpacks and things like that, do you have any advice for anybody who is, chasing an against all odds kind of dream? Somebody who, has a goal, whether it's finding a
yes,
sodalite someday, or whether it's finding a meteorite, or whether it's, whatever it is you're doing out there.
yeah, whatever it is you do out there, just never ever give up. Stay stay if you want to accomplish something like find a meteorite or a sodalite, and you're finding it difficult, if first of all educate yourself about it. That that's
Great advice.
that's going to help you big time with the motivation part. If you want the drive to keep going, if you're going to do this all willy nilly and uneducated, you're going to have problems, and you're likely going to fail. But educate yourself. Look for the resources; they're readily available online, and be prepared. Be prepared. There's a lot of information out there about doing these activities, and like meteorite hunting, for example. You want to have your GPS. It's a good idea to bring backpack with provisions like water, bug spray, snacks for the day, water for the day. You gotta have those things if you're going to
Mhm.
spend, 4+ hours out there. Even an hour, I'd wanna have that stuff anyways. And I keep
Just in
things like,
case. Yep.
yeah, just in case. I keep things like a poncho in here. I always
Yep.
have a poncho in here. For meteorites, for example, um, I bring I think I took my baggies out of here, but I bring aluminum foil. I bring little baggies to place specimens in. Uh, a Sharpie marker to write
Mhm.
GPS coordinates
Mhm.
on, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and it sounds like a lot to do, but like when I went to Holbrook, for example, I brought all this stuff. I was the one Holbrook I found. I very carefully took institute photos, GPS coordinates, all that stuff. But yeah, never give up. You got to get your butt out there and look for it. If you don't want to educate yourself, fine. But just know that you're going to get a lot of backlash um, from the people who are knowledgeable about it. And they're going to be, sincere and forward with you. But
Yeah.
just get out there and do it. Never give
Yeah.
up. I put 10 years into finding this dream, and it came true. I'd
Mhm.
never in my life thought that it would be possible for how long it took, but it finally happened.
Another piece of advice that I have that I think that you'll really agree with is be happy with the things that you do find and the experiences and the days and
Yeah,
sometimes it's even the horror stories that in the
yeah.
moment you're like, I think I might actually die today or be really, really effed out here.
Oh
Like you
yeah,
have those moments, right? Or where you like maybe for half a second are turned around backwards and you fear that for just a moment you might be lost, or I mean, whatever, you have an encounter with some wildlife that's either really awe inspiring or it leaves you slightly terrified so I think as long as you can appreciate each of those little things, oh, today I found an odd rock or a whole
yeah,
handful of, I'm happy with that, even though I didn't find a meteorite today. If you
yep,
can just carry on with that attitude as well and enjoy the journey as much as the destination, then
yeah.
I think that makes it less like you don't even realize that 10 years has gone by because you're
No,
actually enjoying it every day.
I
So,
enjoyed every single minute of it, really and truly. And part of that is being prepared to do it, mentally and physically. I hope everybody can do
field. Do you want to tell us why real quick?
it. Tinfoil. All right, so tinfoil. That would be more or less for um, if you're going out for a fresh fall meteorite. It's a good idea to not put your grubby little mitts on a freshly fallen meteorite. It's not terrible, but it's a good idea. You can keep really pristine samples. You
Mhm.
know, pick things up with gloves, put them
Yep.
in a piece of foil, fold it up, put it in a baggie, label the baggie, put it away until it can be classified. Because there's going to be scientific value. You don't want to contaminate it. If
Mhm.
if it's something really important about that particular meteorite.
Mhm.
So
Such as it being a very fresh fall. That would be
yeah,
important. Yes, you'd want to,
yeah,
like you say,
definitely,
maybe not put your greasy little fingers on it.
yeah. Like Archus arcus, for example. That was a carbonaceous chondrite, and there's two different versions of Archus arcus that you'll see uh, available if you would
Right,
like to find
right.
it. You'll have pre-rain and post-rain.
Yep.
Um, you know, the pre-rain specimens, they're jet black. The post-rain specimens, that experienced a little more terrestrialization and contamination, um, they look a little more gray, and you can see a little bit of iron staining throughout them. It's a little detail. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's something you can pack. You can just have
Mhm.
in your pack out that doesn't take too much space.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and like you said, especially if that's a good idea. I've actually got a couple meteorites in my collection that I know were collected like that and that I know have never been touched by a human hand, and I kind of like that about them. It
It's
makes them
cool, yeah,
a little bit special, Like
for sure.
that's kind of I think neat. So
It is.
I think we've got just a few people still hanging in the chat here. Do you guys have any questions for myself or Stephen before we come to a, end of today? Though there's a bit of a delay, so we have to give them a minute to talk about
Sure,
it. Um,
absolutely.
Also, you've been finding a lot of sodalite, and you'd mentioned to me prior that you've got maybe a surplus of it now, and you may be interested in selling some of it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I without necessarily getting into any kind of prices or shipping and handling or anything like that, would it be okay if somebody wanted to purchase some sodalite from you if they got a hold of me and I referred them to you or asked you questions about, maybe facilitating a sodalite sale?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you
Okay.
very much. I
Yeah,
would appreciate it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So I just
definitely.
want to say, you guys all know how to get in touch with me. If you would like to have some sodalite found by Steven, um, what about Barnstable pieces? Same kind of story. If they want to pay shipping and handling, and
Yeah. I have plenty of little beautiful fragments. I don't, you know, I'm not a dealer or anything, but if somebody is interested and would like to reach out to you, Allison, and contact me,
yep,
uh,
yep.
uh,
I just
yeah,
want to
that
put
would be
that out
great.
there, especially
Or you can,
lights.
yeah,
We're all familiar with that, what that is, and you guys are rock hounds, you in the chat and who are watching right now. And if that's something that you wanted to, run through your tumbler or cut and cab or whatever, carve with your Fordham or your Dremel. I know that Stephen would it would just he'd get a kick out of it to know that you guys were doing stuff with it. So
definitely. If you could share
yeah,
that too with Allison to share with me, I'd appreciate it.
and
If
Jeff,
if that happens.
J and V says he'd be interested in getting some. So yeah, Jeff, I'll reach out to you here. Like me and Steven are gonna go to our meteorite meeting here in just a couple hours. So we're gonna probably take a little break here, get ourselves a drink and a walk around so we don't get stiff in our chairs and maybe get some food and us and stuff before we meet up for our meteorite meeting. But Jeff, I'll get in touch with you in the next couple of days and we'll work something out so that we can come to an agreement on how much you'd like and vice versa, how much Steven, needs to be compensated for that. So, but yeah, I think it'd be really cool if we could share, maybe you and I get back together again here in a few months. You do have something set
Yeah,
up that's formal and official. And I can say, hey, by the way, Jeff did make something. He made a really cool cab out of a piece of your stones. So I think it'd be cool to, you're gonna get drug into this rock hounding community, whether you're willing or whether you've been tricked into it. So just
I
we'll put it there and
I
welcome
would
to
be
the dark
honored to
side,
join. I
Stephen.
would be yes. I would be honored to join more lives with you if
Yeah, yeah, this has
I'm
been a
available and
whole lot
doing
of
rock
fun.
activities. This is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's what you did is like winning the lottery, not monetarily, obviously we touched on that, but astronomical odds, all pun intended, but I'm one in a million sort of thing,
It
and
is,
so
yeah.
it is really cool to. I've heard some of the story before. It's really cool to always revisit that though, and
It
to
is.
just to to live vicariously through you just a little bit, but also to use what you've been through to educate people because a lot of times we can get the wrong idea. Oh, my neighbor's dog is here. We can get the wrong idea that it's simple. I mean, we watch it on TV. They find, and again, the dollar cha-ching, this piece worth $135. This one's worth 2010. This one's worth, a dollar 25. It doesn't matter what they're worth. Like when you're
Yeah,
out hunting for it doesn't matter. It's expensive or unique or, there is a demand for. Um,
yeah,
that all comes after the effort, of getting out there, educating yourself, staying persistent, staying positive, and putting the effort into it, the whole thing. So
yeah.
yeah, I love that you found it, that you're passionate about it, that you are
I
a
love it.
caretaker of it, and that it
It,
was
it
your dream come true, and that you actually got to do that. That's so cool. So
yeah,
cool.
definitely. It changed my life. And
I'm
now I have a big meteorite collection now.
I do too. I do too. And it's changed my life and I've not even found one. it's just introduced me to a community of people who are like-minded, scientific-minded, and I truly get a kick out of getting together with these people, on Zoom every Wednesday and having discussions about, possibly, deep space or possibly microscopic analysis of these things. What's going on a microscopic level in this stuff. Topics like panspermia and, I love being able to dig into all of the different aspects of, how they're created, how they got here, what they're doing, now that they're here. I love it all. I love it all. And
It,
yeah, to be able to find one, it's a dream of mine. So
it's
and
a
I know that I may never, but I do use the word yet. I just haven't found one yet.
I think you are totally gonna find one, Allison. And I I have no doubt in my mind by the amount of time and dedication you put into it. I think it's impossible for you not to find one. It's just a matter of time. Your day will come.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And as long as I'm still able, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna keep looking because again,
Yeah,
though you forget how many years it's been and how many days you go out and don't. None of that matters. You don't keep that. Like I actually have to go back. Like, when did I post that first rock on Facebook? Oh, that's good 10 years ago. Yeah, I've been at it good 10 years. It could have been. I have no idea how long it's been, but it's been a dang long while. But
oh
it
my
doesn't
goodness.
matter. It doesn't matter. I've
No,
met so many cool people along the way. I've enjoyed my
definitely.
time out in the nature, and
Yeah,
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 I mean, it's brought us together, and that's pretty cool.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I look forward to
yeah,
meeting you at the mansion one of these days.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Never give up, folks. There's tons of resources out there. Um, meteorite pages. Um,
Communities like this one
communities.
right here, Prairie Girl Rocks community.
We're also passionate about it. We can
Yeah,
make friends and talk about it. So
yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. I'm glad that everybody got to meet you finally. I mean, not
I'm
everybody
excited.
got to meet you, but in Prairie Girl
Yeah,
Rocks, they got to kind of see your face, hear your story, and meet you. And you've been my friend now for a couple of years, handful of years, almost. I think we're
yeah,
pushing now, and it's nice that
yeah,
they kind of, they
yeah.
get to be your friend now too, and you get to be their friend now too.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, it's been a really fun
We'll do
time and a
this again.
pleasure.
I want to do a future where we get to look at some of your sodalites.
Oh,
So
definitely,
in fact,
definitely.
can you? Do you have one? I
Want
know
me to
it's
get
really light
Want
right
me to
now,
get
but
one?
yeah, yeah,
I was gonna offer to show you. Yeah, I'll go grab one right now. And to answer JMV Rock Hounding's question, they are rounded.
yeah.
Um,
We're
they,
gonna see them right now, Jeff. Maybe a couple, or
yeah,
one that you like. Or
I'll go grab a couple.
perfect. And I'm gonna grab my phone charger while you do that. Everybody, feel free to take a sip of your drink or a stretch while we're getting everything rounded up for a little quick
Sure,
peek at the soda light.
you got it. I'll be
All
right.
right, we'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
Yes, please, says Jeff. Mm. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed that story. It always excites me. Oh, I forgot my charger. It always excites me. I don't know if I'm just particularly excitable or if I mean, it's truly an exciting story, is it not? We can lose Steven and the live will carry on. We can't lose my camera. Now it's making my light flicker though.
All right. So, uh, let's see if I throw some light here. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll use the photo box.
Sure, the back camera.
Yeah. Uh, so considering the fact that I had the pick of the litter, I was the first person really looking for these things on the beach. It really got a nice wide variety of stones and colors, and
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of unique patterns and stuff like that. And some extremely large ones. This is just a small batch of them. Throw some lights, try to darken the place up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so these are. We'll switch this light on real quick so you can see it in the bright light. So here's what they look
Oh
like
yeah.
with the light on, and then here we go, lights off.
Oh yeah. Welcome, Wild. Oh, I love that. And so you have like a it's almost like a a slur or a slogan term for the patterns that you see on these, in particular that really like dense with the tiny, you what are you calling them, brick pattern,
Oh, yeah, there's a brick pattern one. I actually, all right, so
like that one in the back.
this,
Yeah.
this one's unique because you see the blue in there. That's
Hmm.
actually blue. This is the only one I've ever found like that. But the matrix in there, that's what I call the brick pattern. Uh,
Hmm.
but this one is really unique and cool because it's brick and the blue inclusions in there. I don't think
Hmm.
they're inclusions. I just think it's some mix of different mineral in the matrix.
Right.
Then there's we call this type snowflake. This is a real extreme snowflake.
Hmm.
Um, this one's extremely bright. It doesn't go throughout the entire stone, but it's there's not too many that are this bright on any given surface. And I don't have a name for all of the patterns yet, but there's some really cool and unique stones.
Hmm.
Some of them are extremely bright, and some of them are very homogeneous. Some of them are just
I actually
complete.
kind of like that.
Yeah, this one's
I
beautiful.
like the really spastic ones too, though, that look like they've been splattered with paint, but that is cool too. Like, I think that would
Yeah,
make really pretty jewelry.
yeah, just really nice and uniform throughout.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not going to change much if you were to actually cut this. Um, and it's nice that they've been rounded, naturally by the beach. It took millions of years to to make these patterns, or tens of thousands of years in Cape Cod's instance.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but there's cool stuff even like this that has the veins of sodalite throughout.
Yeah, really cool.
But yeah,
And
this
Jeff
is
said, "Oh yeah," and Wild Heart
oh
gave it a couple hearts.
oh yeah. It's so much fun hunting for these. So, like, that's my nature. I love this challenge. And this isn't like hunting meteorites. They're not that complicated, but it's like one in a million out there on the beach. And the way I
Right.
describe it, it's like the best meat. It's like the best Easter egg hunt ever. That's what I tell
Mhm.
everybody. And
Mhm.
for $100 light, if you're in the area of a place where you can find UV mineral specimens, I would highly recommend picking one of these up.
Mhm.
It
Yeah, I
just
have several. I have
I
the pocket version all the way to the cop version, like you, the one that you could knock somebody with. Yeah.
Right, right, exactly.
Yep, I
Yeah.
have several.
So that's what I'm doing now on Cape Cod since I'm not hunting meteorites here. Hunting these things, and I have a lot now because now I have hundreds of hours and miles invested into it.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so it's not very common, but it's cool stuff. I get
Yeah,
all my
I
old
also love them, Jeff. They're really cool. I dig it. Like I say, I'm gonna get me some, and I'm gonna do some stuff with it.
definitely,
Mhm.
definitely
Yeah.
sending you some. Listen,
What's that?
I said I'm definitely sending you some to make some
Yeah,
jewelry or
I've got your
whatever.
stuff
Yeah,
too. There's a bag
cool.
right there. Do you see it like a blue silver bag?
Oh yeah.
That's got your name on it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 And again,
All
you'll have to
right.
check everything in there out with the UV when you get it.
I'm excited.
Oh, and Jeff wants to know, do you have a shortwave and a midwave light?
I don't. Um,
Does it I'm gonna ask
I'm
Jeff a question really quick. Jeff, does the sodalite do different things under shortwave and midwave?
I really should get another light.
Just curious if he knows the
I
answer to that.
I've
Or
seen
is he
I've seen
strictly asking because he wanted to see the difference if there was? If, you know,
I've seen like that Uber light guy. He has a different wavelength light. I don't know if it's 300 and something
mhm, mhm.
or a
365
high
and 390 and 70. I can't
or a
remember
higher
either.
value. But there's a stone that glows green, and there's plenty of other UV minerals that do different
Sure.
things under different wavelengths. But yeah, if Jeff has any information,
Pat, no kidding. Hey, Pat.
Brown, Professor Brown.
There's that in your future as well, by the way.
Pat, I'm
If
showing off rocks and meteorites.
we're breaking all the rules for Meteorite Club. First rule is don't talk about Meteorite Club. You should get one and try hunting with them. There could be other things you can find, is why I asked, says Jeff. Okay, well, good to know,
Yeah,
Jeff. Yeah.
I
I
I
got
I
the
agree.
395 and the 3 whatever the other one is. Yeah, I never can remember the difference either, but I'd like to get the whole spectrum one of these days too. I think Jeff, I'm gonna ask Jeff another question. Did Kyle get one that was like all in one? Like he could toggle through like 3 different waves on one flashlight? If that's such a thing, I'll share the link with you, Steven, because even if they're expensive, they'd be cool as shit to have.
I they,
So
it might be called the Aurora, and they're expensive.
yeah. Well,
But
maybe someone should look into getting
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Send me some rocks, Steven. I'll check them out for you.
I definitely should invest in another lake because the diversity of rocks on the Sandy Neck Beach where I hunt these ones, there's got to be other ones. That's the whole reason I bought that light and figured, yeah, there's got to be soda light out there
Yeah.
because there's everything. There's fossil wood out there. I found fossil wood and you know like calcite based stones. You know, like
Yep.
bunch of different ones.
Yep. 310
Can
for
I?
mid. Yes. And Rufo has the
Excellent.
link to the triple one. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I might look
Sweet.
into that. That would be interesting. I mean, I've been
Yeah,
serious about this long enough now that I should invest in a UV light like that. Why not?
yeah, I'm into
So,
it too. Yeah, cool.
yeah, yeah. I have a hard time though hunting in the dark out here on in the middle of the prairie without taking somebody with me. Like I
I
get
don't.
way weird like alien abduction vibes and shit.
I would definitely
It's
want like some protection if I was hunting out in the prairie.
yeah,
Like,
protection from what though, Steven?
uh, I don't know.
Aliens? I know it's nonsense for me to feel weird when I'm out there because there's nothing out there I should be afraid of. I
Yeah,
literally am
I would
like,
be afraid of aliens out there for
yeah,
sure.
I am a little like, and I know it's not rational, but
On Cape Cod, all I have is when I'm on the shoreline, I'm like, 100 feet away from a house max, maybe a quarter mile. I don't know. But what do I have to contend with? Flies, mosquitoes, and maybe like the occasional coyote. Out in the
Yeah,
prairie,
a
though,
little
I'd be
bit
a
of
little
like
more
maybe some
cautious.
brutal temperatures, some cold winds, and some like back spray off the ocean. And I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes I'm not top dog out there. Sometimes Mother Nature is top dog out there, but
Allison, sorry I'm not wearing a meteorite shirt. I got the
that's
John
all
Deere
right.
too.
I like how you went full John Deere. It cracks me up. Like,
Never go full John Deere.
or do and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, again, it just goes to show like how fully dedicated you are to like when I make a move, I'm gonna make that move, man, and I don't care. Like the bikers riding by
Exactly.
with the side eye. What's this guy doing out here on the hands and knees in the woods, raking through the dirt with a magnet? You know, like you gotta just like.
Exactly.
And I do remember feeling weird about it at first too. Like somebody would drive by when I'm rock hounding, and I'd try to like act natural and not like act natural, right?
Oh,
Like
it like so that's the other thing. Like I get embarrassed easily. Like it doesn't take much. And like these activities, like hunt for meteorites in the woods, all out in the woods. Like I couldn't be embarrassed by anything. But like
exactly.
if I'm metal detecting like public land, I feel like I'm getting the side eye all the time. Like even though I shouldn't even worry me. And sometimes I could be in the groove and whatever, if I'm
Yep.
fine, like. But sometimes I feel just weird. Like what are people gonna think? I'm out like out in this football field. Like yeah, I don't do
So
athletic
rumor
fields
has
very
it
often,
though
but
that like your like actual community, physical community kind of just got used to you being out and they even like maybe even gave you a nickname. Is that true?
yeah, Rocky.
Yeah, because you were just out like all the time. And every time anybody looked or stopped or asked if you were okay, you were like, I'm
But
fine, I'm just looking for rocks.
but my career mentor, that he he taught me everything I know about grounds. He gave me the nickname Rocky because always scanning for rocks. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get caught in the grocery store now, and people will be like, "Seen you out on the whatever road the other day. Let me guess, you're out there looking for rocks." And it's like, yeah, they're all finally catching on. I mean,
I, I look for rocks so much. I probably need a posture brace because
I feel the
my
same
my neck's
way.
probably shaped like this. Yeah.
I feel the same way. I'm like, maybe I should try like not looking at the ground all the time in case like I get my grandma had that like hump on her neck, and I'm like, I'm gonna look like my grandma. Like, but
You
on the
know
flip side, I'm almost 40 years old, or 40 something years old, and I can still touch my toes. So I'm quite impressed with my own flexibility. Like it's kept me in good shape, you know.
Right? Seriously, yeah.
So I'm not.
I
I
gotta
mean,
I gotta count my
again,
chickens. I could I'm still in good shape because of all this activity.
yeah, 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 exactly. So.
Definitely a good thing.
So it's been a really good adventure for me too, and I was just glad that like the path that you were on when you found your meteorite and the path that I'm on while I'm looking for my meteorite have weirdly intersected, and that we've
Yeah,
got to be friends,
seriously. I'm
right?
like
Like
I'm so glad we're friends and like yeah. Hey, isn't it funny that there's no such thing as a hike anymore? All right, I want to see if you share the same feeling. There's no such thing as a hike anymore. Like every time I get out in the woods, like sometimes I'll be like, oh, I gotta walk down this path and just look around. No, to
nope.
me that doesn't happen anymore. I'm like this. I'm walking
On
down the
my way
path
by,
like
I looked at that, and there's no such thing as a drive to anywhere either because I'll be like, dang, that road cut
this. Exactly.
place to stop necessarily stop, but as I drive by, I'm like, that road cut could be real good,
I
you
had it.
know?
I
Like,
had a few years where we have stone walls in New England like crazy. I had a few years
oh
where that's
man.
all I could do is just like look at stone walls everywhere. I was like, somebody has to put a meter in a stone wall, and really bad distracted driving. I shouldn't have done that.
I know. And then, like, again, here's this guy walking up and down the street looking at walls.
Oh yeah.
I would do it too, and I've been that weird person too who's been walking down the sidewalk and been like, "Er, what the hell?" Like the inscription on this plaque on this wall looks like local marble. Like I wonder if they quarried that locally back in 1808 when they polished this and put it on the wall. Like I'm that weird person too who happens to notice that rock in the wall. Like
Pat Pat
don't
Pat
take what
100
you
Pat 100% agrees with us.
As for birds, always looking for rocks, and especially space rocks.
No doubt about it, Pat.
Hey, freaking thanks for stopping in.
Pat
Oh gosh, yeah,
Pat
yeah. Every once in a while too, I'll remind myself I should look up and at least for a minute and enjoy the surroundings.
I'm telling you,
And I can put my head back down.
Pat, and I need to do a rock hound and meteorite hunting expedition somewhere.
Mhm.
I know where
Yeah.
there's I know where there's farmer rock piles too, Pat, and
Oh, me too. Hundreds of them. I can't tell you how many piles I've looked in.
I feel like I gotta get like one of those specialty coils for the XB too that just punches really deep into like a pile like that because I wonder if there's like an iron like stuck down in one of those. Even though I
It
love
always makes you
chondrite,
wonder,
I'd just
right?
be curious.
I always run my metal detector over the big piles too, which is not always great here because there's often like abandoned farm equipment or baling wire
Yeah,
or twine or something in there that sucks ass and is going to give you
I
a signal. You
like
know.
the White Gold Master VSAT, which is it's a really straightforward machine, and the Gold Bug too, for example. I've
Mhm.
taken those over the rock piles here, and there's just so many hot rocks. It's
Mhm.
nearly impossible. I've tried
Mhm.
like I've started pulling apart the rock piles, but
So was I.
there's so much rock though. It's like
And I
it's
get down there and it's like it's a damn rusty tin can or an old like Pabst PBR can or something. You're like, arg.
yeah. So Nininger found meteorites Nininger, sorry.
Yep.
Nininger found meteorites on
On
farms
farms
in those spots.
in the rocks,
Yeah,
and he's mentioning, holding a garage door open, holding the roof down on the old building, or putting a heavy lid on a kraut can or something. Those would all be places where they've been using maybe a meteorite for the past 100 years and never even noticed.
yeah.
They just used it because it was a good heavy rock.
Good
Like,
doorstop.
and the thing too with like the people out picking rocks and putting them in the piles, they don't give a crap. Like I've looked through some of the rock piles out here and found like mahoosive chunky petwoods and stuff. They tossed that shit in the pile. They didn't care after they picked, how many tractor buckets full of heavy rocks in the afternoon. They didn't care if it looked like a space rock or a piece of petwood or a fossil or anything. It got hucked in the pile with the rest of the rocks. In fact, they probably hated that space rock more than all the rest of them because it was especially heavy.
They had
So it
yeah.
just isn't in their mentality when their job is to pick rock out of the field that, maybe I'll find a meteorite today. It just
Exactly.
isn't.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's always I've done some of the same weird stuff, and it drives me insane sometimes to wonder, there could be a real good one down on the bottom of that pile and no one would ever know.
Oh, it drives me nuts all the time. My rock hounding buddy that I go out with and hunt these sodalites with, I was like, we when we're driving down the road sometimes, I was like, can you believe there's probably a meteorite out in those woods somewhere? Even though I mean that might not be the reality, but that's the way I think all the time.
I do
That
too. I do too. I mean, they've got to be there. It's just, yeah, are they buried under the leaf litter? Are they, uh, underneath a bunch of rocks because again, they were dumped off in a glacial till pile? Are they,
yeah,
I mean, just there's just so many things that your mind thinks when you're out there. Like, yeah, this is a good spot to be looking. You think about like Pat Brown is really great for giving advice. Like, man, on those flat, dry lake beds, there's such thing as a collection mechanism where the wind and weather and erosion are gonna accumulate all of the rocks to one end of this flat, and so your chances are more likely to find a piece over here just due to that. So things like that, again, just any little tidbits you can get like that, it's it can be helpful if you find yourself in that spot or that situation where, ah, ding, this looks like a good place to look, or yeah, there's no guarantee though. You know, it could come crashing. I fingers crossed it hits my truck tomorrow. I would sacrifice my beautiful Chevy pickup for a hammerstone.
Yeah, I would sacrifice a Ferrari for a Hammerstone. It would probably make it worth more.
Absolutely, it would make it worth more. Yeah, I'm gonna put my truck in a museum if it gets hit by a meteorite.
The irony of meteorites, your car could be smashed by one, you'll come
And
out
it's an
smelling
and
rosy.
it's no and it's maybe even no prettier or different than Barnstable, right? But it
Yeah,
actually hit something, and now it's like, "Oh my god, here they come with their
yeah,
jigsaws to cut the bumper off your truck and take it out and put it in there." Like, it's just
right,
nuts. Yeah, it's nuts.
definitely, definitely.
I mean, again, it's not impossible to get rich finding a meteorite. It's just
Yeah,
not
no,
every story ends like that. And it's not impossible to find one without looking. Just not every story ends like that. It's not impossible to, find one on accident when you sit down to have lunch, or, but not every story ends that way. It
yeah,
is possible to look for 10 plus years and not be successful. It is
definitely.
possible to find one and not have, wind up being the caretaker for it, not having a market for it, or a reasonable value, like all of those things that you don't think about when you do find. Who's going to believe you? How are you going to get this classified, brought to science? Who are those people, and how do you get a hold of them? Those are all those hurdles and steps that, did you even think about grabbing a coordinate on that? They won't give it a place name if you can't tell them where you found it. you
Yeah,
know
you
um
need
all of those
yeah,
things that, when people are rock hounding slash meteorite hunting, which we do the other way around. We're meteorite hunting slash rock hounding,
yeah,
obviously, but when you do it the other way around, and you're just kind of, like you said, without any education or direction, you're playing a game that you don't know the rules of, and you're kind of floundering around hoping for a score. You're more likely to
oh,
score if you've got some strategy and you know the rules, right? So
definitely, definitely.
again, I want to offer this video to people who have an aspiration of, let's say, meteorite hunting. It's kind of come into popularity with meteorite men and desert hunter and all whoever else the guys are that are doing the things. And it's just, not every story is that known strewnfield success story. And if you're out in your backyard or your neck of the woods where there's no other known meteorites, it's against all odds kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And you want to be sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, that you're enjoying the process, that you're not out there hoping to get rich, because you may not.
yeah,
So if
exactly.
that's your main motive and goal, like,
Well said.
please quit now. Please just save
Yeah,
yourself and us and everyone who's going to have to help you ID your rocks. For quit.
right.
Like, and again, you said too, you're going to get some backlash from some of those people who do know. And I don't want people to be afraid or intimidated to talk to us, because I have backlashed. I have, you know, corrected somebody and tried to nudge them and educate them and educate them. And when they just blatantly turn around and are like, "You're wrong, you need to educate yourself better," and things like that, I'm just like, you know what, then you're on your own, and please don't waste any. I don't mean to be snarky and mean, I really don't. When we correct you folks out there who are asking for assistance and asking for advice and things like that, we are definitely doing that from a place of kindness. Like,
Oh,
it
for
does
sure.
it does not do you
And
any good to
passion.
have a meteor wrong and obsess on your meteor wrong, when you could put that one aside and maybe you got to keep going out, or because when you obsess over that one rock, your chances of finding a right are diminished greatly.
I I
So
I've seen
again,
I've
just
seen it consume people.
absolutely consume people. And again, we're not trying to, diminish you or your rock or anything. But I've said it before on this channel, just because you want something to be something doesn't make it be that thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, sometimes, harsh as it may sound, or no offense to Pat, who's in the chat here, but Pat separates himself emotionally, monetarily, every way possible, and literally just the facts. This is the rock in front of us. We again cannot make it be something that it isn't, and so let's look at what it is. You know,
Yeah.
he takes all emotional and everything. He's more science focused and again, matter of fact.
Yeah.
And so sometimes like you said, all consuming, people just cannot get past it. They can't move
Oh,
past
for
it. They're so
sure.
focused. We're not trying to poo poo on your dream, but help you be more successful. And you know, do. I'm usually super kind about it, and I'm usually like really opinion of others is well put. I can approach things and it comes out very positively and
Yeah,
directly, and I'm good at that communication skill,
for
right?
sure. Yeah.
When I'm focusing on that educational part of meteorites with fellow rock hounds and stuff, I try to do that. And again, it comes from a place of my kindness in my heart. Um, but
Same.
yeah, it gets a little tough when people get, you know, want to call you out for being a liar or just poo-pooing it. I'm gonna get rich. And it's just like, oh my goodness. Like
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
please don't. Please don't. And if you that's it. And if I tell you 109 different ways that your rock for this reason doesn't look like me, or it doesn't, don't hyper focus on, yeah, but oh yeah, but this, like it's
It
just crazy
happens.
sometimes. And again, I don't mean to be rude and tell you no. I just mean to like let's make that correction and move on, in a different way. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's why, like, primarily I'd tell people just, get do some Google searches, find those resources that, are supported by universities and
mhm,
things of that nature, like professional meteorite dealers that are accredited by,
mhm.
the IMCA or whatever. And just get the education under your belt. There's plenty of it. And not only that, it's fun to read, and it'll help increase your passion about it, and your drive. It'll help you drive, and when you finally get out into the field and look for it, you'll have better confidence.
Well, and
And
I feel like too, like there's learning about there's looking at pictures and not learning much, right? There's like that A stage where, oh, I looked at a few pictures and so I'm curious, right? And then there's like that B stage where you start doing your own kind of like poking and prodding Google searches and things, maybe reading some audio books or, whatever, going to a museum, whatever your next step is. And then there's like, now you're starting to hear these terms and interpret what they know what they mean and be able to have a conversation with somebody about what they mean, to knowing now that you'll never know everything about it and that it is something that you can show up to week after week after week, day after day, and keep
oh,
learning about. And um
for sure.
I'm not exactly sure where that tipping point is, where that flip switch is flipped, where you go from like not under it's sounding like Greek and not understanding to being able to say, oh, that's a familiar meteorite. Let me guess, that's
Yeah.
Bondoc, or let me guess, that's Gujba, or let me guess,
Oh,
that's an
yeah.
LL3. I mean, to there's definitely something there, right? Where show up, learn the language, and then pretty soon you realize that you have way more questions than you have answers, and that it's probably going to remain that way for the entire rest of your obsessed, you know,
like
oddly
like like
meteorite driven,
like Pat
intuitive passion. So
like Pat is saying, being in a state of constant learning is important for everyone.
yes, it is.
It'll
Yes, it
never hurt
is.
anybody. He's totally right about that.
And Willow's confidence. I know everything and nothing.
I love
I know enough just to know a little. How little I know. Exactly, Jeff, right?
it.
You think you kind of got a grasp on it at like, year two, three, 4, or 5. And then you start pushing, 5, 6, 7 years. And then pretty soon, you and I could probably literally sit down and have a conversation that nobody understood a single word of.
Yeah. It'd be like watching
So
two people talking Chinese.
absolutely. 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 So
Oh,
yeah. And I try not to throw that too much into my rock hounding, but I try to just dabble a little bit just to, not
Yeah.
to drown everybody with it all at once, but just enough to get, like here's a little bite-sized chewy piece, a little appetizer before the full meal, if you will. So if you want the full meal, you can come on over to Topher Spin Meteorites and we will fill you up.
That is
But
the best.
if you
Yeah,
just want a little teaser or an appetizer, then go ahead and stop on by Prairie Rocks where I will do some videos and interviews and things here and there that'll keep you interested,
for sure.
hopefully. So I'm so glad you shared everything, all your knowledge, like all your knowledge. Yeah, right. We talked about one topic today. Like I say, you and I could go like,
Forever.
let's talk about
For
LL3s and LL4. Like, let's talk about chondrules, Stephen. Let's like,
Oh my goodness. We could go
we
on
could
and on about chondrils for sure.
nerd out so hard, and we will later tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Here, we could show some chondrils real quick. Oh wait, I don't know if this will be a
Oh,
good
that's
view.
pretty.
Here's some chondrils for you.
Beautiful piece.
Yeah, for the love of meteorites, and you can see metal in there.
Yep, that's got the best of both worlds.
And this is a type 3, so
That's a
really
nice piece.
beautiful and fresh. But anytime you want me to like bring some meteorites on, if you want to go like tandem with the meteorites, you could show some. Like we could,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't want to tell all your secrets, but yeah, you and Pat are up to something that's got me deeply fascinated and interested right now. So stay tuned. If you're watching the replay of this or you're watching the live, there's probably going to be another like crazy story coming from Steven about another really important and fascinating piece. So,
definitely,
oh man, that thing's just been, I've had crazy, it's like infiltrated my dreams and everything. It's just been like, I look forward to it every Wednesday. I'm like, oh, I hope we get to look at it. I hope Pat cut another slice of that.
Pat,
So,
Pat, Pat and I, we need to crush it again on that because I took vacation. We haven't talked about it in a while.
I
I'm
know, and then
missing it.
he
I'm
he
missing
and
it.
another member of the crew were chatting the other night, and it was a
Yeah.
great conversation. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I wonder if Pat could slide that under the microscope so we could look at it while we chat.
Every time Pat slides out under the microscope, I'm like a kid in a candy store. Yes,
Me
what are we gonna
too.
see?
Me too. And he'll be talking, and I'm like, "Whoa, stop! Did you see that? Go back!" Sorry to interrupt, but I just saw. So you need to go back.
I know.
Oh, fantastic. He says he's making the thin sections that they're being made right now. Yeah, I'm so
Yes.
excited. I'm so excited. Yeah,
Yep.
anyway, so without giving everything away to everybody, we will have you back.
Cool.
And yeah, I'm glad that a few of the my regular faces in the chat have had a chance to meet you and yeah, like I say,
Well,
stay tuned.
thank you so much for having me join.
Yeah,
I love this. I love hanging out with you. So we gotta do it more.
we definitely it's been way fun. And yeah, Uperlite surprise. Oh, sorry, not Uperlites, soda lights. Why do you not call them Uperlites? Tell me why.
No, no. All right. So Uperlites is I feel like that's a locational term
Yeah.
because Upers are that's the Upper Michigan peeps.
Yes.
I
Yes.
I gave these a name. They're Cotterlites.
They're what? Say it again.
Cotterlights, like Cape
Cotter
Cotter.
lights?
Yep.
Cape Cotter
Cape.
lights.
Yeah, Cape
I like
Cotterlights.
it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like it. I like
If we
it.
want to give them a yeah.
Yeah.
I value scientific nomenclature, but we're gonna call these Cape Cotterlights.
I like it. It's descriptive, informative, and very namey. So yeah,
And,
I like it. It's
and I'm the John Deere representative too.
and you went full John Deere today.
If you need a John Deere, contact me.
Oh gosh, I might will need that if I ever decide to go full John Deere on those rock piles out here on the prairie.
I can back it up. I use John Deere equipment at work, so
I can back it up. God. All right. And Jeff said he might be interested in some of those Cape Cod lights. And he said maybe that D might be as well. So I'll get in touch with Jeff. Like I say, maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow, Jeff, sometime before the end of the week, and we'll
Cool.
get something going where we can all come to some kind of a fantastic arrangement there for everybody.
Cool,
We'll win,
cool.
win, win. Yeah, I love
Good,
it too, Willow. And thank you guys so much for watching today. I'm gonna
good to
sing the
meet you
song,
all.
Steven. You
Sounds
don't have
great.
to. And then we're gonna wrap it up here. And like I say, I very much so look forward to having you on again.
Cool.
So yeah, thanks so much, man. It's
You're welcome.
the story itself is almost as priceless as the meteorite. So I
Thank
really
you
do
so
feel
much.
like it picked you to find it. You were
It
definitely
did.
the
It
right guy.
definitely did. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for watching today. Pretty rocks out on the prairie. Pretty rocks are everywhere. Pretty rocks for us to look at. Pretty rocks are everywhere. There's a pink one and a green one and a blue one and a yellow one. And they all are very pretty. And they all are everywhere. Thank you guys so much for watching. In a world where you can choose to be anything, choose to be kind of a rock hound. That's it. Yes. All right, guys. Have a great rest of the week. We'll see you around soon. Don't forget to hit the buttons, do all the likes, the comments, the subscribes. It helps the algorithm. And let
Bye,
Steven know we want to have him back. All right. Thanks,
bye,
guys. Bye.
everyone. Take care.